So I'm going to start with non-gameplay stuff. This is going to be stuff that's not, you know, in-match things. Number one, PC performance. The people were scared before the beta started that the requirements were going to be very high. The ones that were listed on the Steam websites made it seem like it was going to require quite a beefy PC to run. As far as I can tell, that was slightly oversold. The game does seem to run fairly well on any PC that can already run Street Fighter V, although your individual cards may vary. The only thing I will say about PC performance is that when you were in the battle hubs, as in the lobby system, if your character was looking across the lobby and it was having to render lots of other people's creator characters, like if your view contained lots of different player characters, I noticed that was the main cause of frame dips. So for example, if I stared at a wall, I was getting solid 60 FPS, no problems in lobbies. But if I was looking at everyone's monstrous player character creations, it was dipping to like, you know, 45, 50 FPS. But in terms of like in-game, in-match frame rate, absolutely no issues. Rock solid 60. And I don't have a particularly powerful PC, so I think that's fairly reassuring. Netcode. Netcode was absolutely superb. I can't compliment the netcode high enough. It was as good as any that I've played. I tested it to players from UK all the way to Tennessee, which was fine. That's like, what, Midwest? UK, Tennessee was fine. I even actually tested it as far as UK to Brazil. I played against Ronaldinho, the Nash player, from Street Fighter V. And it was pretty delayed, because the game adds a bit of input delay to compensate for the rollback. So I could definitely feel that my inputs were coming out slowly. But overall, considering that's like, what, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 miles, it was surprisingly manageable. So the netcode was fantastic. I have nothing bad to say about the netcode, except my one and only criticism of the netcode is it doesn't let you customize the rollback frames and the delay frames. That's the only thing I would suggest to improve it. Right now, it automatically adjusts them based on what it thinks is best. So it'll dynamically move the number of rollback frames and the number of delay input frames by itself. But what would really push it up to the next level is if it had the option to customize that, so that I could choose myself how many of each for the best possible performance. Number 3, lobbies and matchmaking. The battle lounge was fun. I'm not usually a huge fan of those kind of like open lounges that they have in ArcSys games, for example, where you both have to like sit at a station and ready up, and I always find those a bit cumbersome. But in practice, it worked fine. I didn't have any problems with it. It just all worked fine. In terms of matchmaking, it was hard to say because ranked was awkward to access. You had to go through a weird menu to get them ranked up. With the few times that I played ranked, I didn't play much ranked over the weekend, but the few matches I did do, it found me a game fairly quickly, so that seemed to work, but I would hold off on fully reviewing the matchmaking right now, just because that was quite locked down for the beta version. UI and menus. The game looks great. The UI was really intuitive. I didn't have any problem finding stuff. Menus were good. Game UI is fine. The only thing I would say about the in-battle UI is that I would like to see a number for the drive gauge. Because the drive gauge in Street Fighter 6 is an absolutely vital resource. I feel like managing the drive gauge is basically the core of Street Fighter 6 gameplay. So you need to be able to see at a glance exactly how much drive gauge you've got, because there's so many different ways to spend it. So one thing I would like to see personally is maybe like just a tiny little number next to the bars, so that if I glance at it just for a split second in the middle of my combo or in neutral or whatever, I can see that I've got 4 or 5 or 3 or 2 drive gauges without having to like look up and then like count how many there are left. Because I found sometimes that I was going into burnout just because I couldn't tell at a glance how many drive gauges I had. That was my only real criticism. Create-a-character. I loved this feature. I loved seeing everyone's nightmare creations. I loved making my own. I'm looking forward to the full game coming out to see how truly disturbing things can get. I know some people are mad that the lobby was full of monsters, but I love stupid shit like that. Give me more of that. Accessibility features. This was incredible. So if you guys don't know, Street Fighter 6 has an entire extra set of menus hidden away for accessibility features. There is even a mode that will add a constant beeping sound to the game to let you know how far you are from your opponent. So for example, if you're far away, the beeping will be low pitched, and the closer you get, the more it increases in pitch and frequency. So even blind players can tell exactly how far they are from the opponent. There was all sorts of ways to modify the UI to be more accessible. There was sound cues to let you know how much meter you've got, how much drive gauge, how much super meter, tons of different modifiers for different sound settings. Again, all these little features in the accessibility menu, fantastic. Probably the best I've ever seen in any fighting game. I feel like if Street Fighter 6 deserves credit for really going the extra mile in one area, it's the accessibility stuff. I really liked it. Glad to see it. Training mode. Training mode was also great. You'll notice a trend here that I seem to like everything. I know I sound like a shill right now, but training mode was also fantastic. It's basically Street Fighter V's training mode, but with all of the little complaints that I have about it filled in. So for example, two of my big complaints about Street Fighter V's training mode are the fact that you can't set reversal actions for air resets. So for example, if I just jump back into Street Fighter V right now, let's say I want to test this situation with Oro. So I'm going to do an air reset into a dash through. Currently in Street Fighter V, there is absolutely no way to set Ryu to do a reversal after this. You can set reversals on wake up, and you can set reversals after guard, but you can't set reversals after air reset. Likewise, you also can't set reversals after non-hitting knockdowns. So for example, if I want to see what Ryu can do after jab jab tatsu here, there is no way of setting that other than awkward recordings in Street Fighter V. Street Fighter 6, you are fully able to set reversal actions for everything. So that was an issue that I'm glad they fixed. There was another really nice quality of life thing where if you want to set the opponent to do an action after, say, after waking up or after guard or after resets, rather than have you record exactly what you want to do, you can do that. You do have the option to record some action after guard, but it also has like a quick select menu where you can just say wake up with common actions like throw, EXDP, jab, crouch jab, stand jab. They're just like there as presets. Because 99% of the time in training mode, if you want to test what your opponent, or what happens when your opponent wakes up with something, the vast majority of the time you're going to be using like wake up crouch jab, wake up EXDP, and wake up throw. Like those are the most common kind of things that you'll be doing. So the fact that you had to manually record those every time was a bit annoying. So all these little like niggles that I have with Street Fighter V's training mode, like every single one of them has been solved. I couldn't find a single thing that I wasn't able to do. It even has a really useful feature that for me personally, which is that you can actually select how many times the dummy will block before doing an action. So for example, if I want to test the dummy doing a wake up move after blocking, say, after 3 medium kicks, it's awkward to set up in Street Fighter V because you can only set the action after 1 guard. Whereas in Street Fighter 6, again, you can choose exactly how many things they block before they do the reversal action. So again, another really nice quality of life feature. I can't really go through all the menus. There's just so much there. But I couldn't find a single thing that I would want out of a training mode which wasn't in SF6 training mode. So yeah, fantastic. Okay, now we're into the gameplay side of stuff a bit more. So the drive system, you know, is the absolute core of Street Fighter 6. You've got drive impact, drive rush, parry, EX moves, drive reversal. No, I will not be calling them OD moves. You can't convince me to call them OD moves, they're EX moves. I will accept no arguments about this. Drive impact is a mechanic that a lot of people complained about over the weekend. A lot of people saying it simplifies neutral, it's too easy to just throw out, too rewarding. I disagree. I felt that drive impact is one of those things that is going to seem strong immediately, but I feel like it's going to fall off very fast once you've trained yourself to react to it better. My reaction time fucking sucks, and by the end of the beta, even I was starting to get an idea of how to react to drive impact. And reacting to a drive impact with your own drive impact is extremely satisfying. So to me, the complaints about drive impact are just that, like, it's one of those things that's strong in the very early meta, but is gonna just taper off real quick. Drive rush, however, is a very different mechanic than I was expecting. Prior to the beta, most of the use of drive rush was people just doing normal, dash cancel, normal, as a way to extend combos or extend pressure. But drive rush ended up having a bunch of interesting properties, the main one of which is that it gives the next normal extra juggle points and extra juggle potential afterwards. So there's lots of combos that were discovered over the weekend which use drive rush to extend juggles rather than ground combos. And this ended up being a really interesting mechanic. Like, there's tons of different ways you can use drive rush. I can't really go into the details of all of them right now, but I was pleasantly surprised by how much complexity there was to drive rush. My only concern about drive rush as a mechanic, I know I was just saying that people are complaining about drive impact. I feel like drive rush could be the one that ends up causing more problems for balance over time. Because particularly the version of drive rush you get out of a parry, I feel is a bit too cheap. If you do the parry version of drive rush, it only costs 1 bar of drive gauge. And when it comes to extending combos or giving your next normal plus frames, that felt extremely low cost for the high level of reward you got. Like, I was quickly realizing that if I just do drive rush into crouch medium kick, for example, with Kimberly, in an Oki situation, that was a low forward advancing move that was, I think, +9 on hit and +5 on block, and all it cost me to do that was 1 bar of drive gauge. So I'm not saying it's overpowered, I've no idea, it's far too early to call, but if anything's going to end up being more explosive in the long term, I think it's going to be drive rush. Parry was a mechanic that is difficult to sort of place in the early meta. I feel like almost no one was using parries properly. Defensive mechanics generally take more time to figure out than offensive mechanics. So, you know, I think that the parry, and particularly, I'll also say the drive reversal, both of these were hideously underused in the beta. And they could be very, very strong as things develop. But because, you know, early on day 1, day 2, day 3, everyone's just, you know, slamming their face into the stick. These weren't used that much. So I feel like there's a bit of a question mark around drive reversal and parry. But we'll see as things advance how important they are to the meta. And obviously EX moves are just EX moves. That's not really anything new. The only difference is that EX moves now come from the drive meter rather than coming from the super meter. So you can use EX moves and supers in combos. But that didn't really like change the flow of the game. So there's not much to say about EX moves. Supers, level 1, 2, and 3. I like this a lot. A lot of people wanted multiple super selection in Street Fighter V. Towards the end of the game, people kept asking for V-Trigger 1 and 2 and also CA 1 and 2. But I think this is actually a better solution. I like having 3 different supers accessible at the same time rather than having to choose between them. I think this is a much better way to implement it, because it gives you more control, again, about meter management. Street Fighter 6 is all about meter management, and this is yet another way to manage your meter. Do you want to spend your level 1 early for a life lead at the end of a combo? Do you want to save it up for the big level 3 later on? In the case of Kimberly, specifically, because I was playing Kimberly mostly, you know, her level 3 gives her a permanent buff for the rest of the game, so that's another layer of, like, how you want to choose to use your resources. Do I want to spend my level 3 early to give myself the damage and speed boost of her level 3 for the rest of the match? Or do I want to hold on to it for a more pivotal moment? I liked that stuff. I really like the layers of depth in the meter management of 6. Frame data. Not much to say here. The only thing that was interesting is that once we'd figured out the frame data for Street Fighter 6, it turns out that almost nothing is plus. This is a very, very, very different approach to frame data from Street Fighter V. In Street Fighter 6, most characters have maybe 2 buttons at most that are plus on block. If I remember rightly, Kimberly's stand heavy kick and crouch medium kick, I think, are the only buttons she has that are plus. Everything else is minus. All her medium punches, I think even her lights are all minus, but she can chain them. So pressure in 6 is very different to 5. Right now, because we're all unaccustomed to it, everyone's getting away with stealing frames. You'll see lots of footage of people pressing like crouch medium punch, stand medium punch, like a Street Fighter 5 string in 6, even though it's fake as hell and you can interrupt it. But gone are the days of like extended frame traps. Street Fighter 5 is notorious for being frame trap the game. You know, if I press stand medium kick 3 times in a row with Oro, that is a completely tight frame trap every single time. If you attempt to interrupt it at any point, you will get counter hit. Whereas in Street Fighter 6, the main way of getting plus frames is either to use Drive Rush, which gives your moves more advantage, or to put your opponent in Burnout, which also gives you more advantage. When your opponent is in Burnout, almost every normal goes from being minus to plus. So Burnout is, you know, death in Street Fighter 6. There's about 100 different reasons why. You take the chip damage, you get stunned in the corner if you block a drive impact. But one of the big reasons why Burnout is so bad is because it's almost never your turn. Pretty much everything you block while in Burnout becomes plus. So, yeah. Another reason why I'm saying that this is meter management the game, because if you burn out in 6, you've probably lost the round. Or I think that's the way it'll turn out once we get to grips with things properly. Overall game flow / style. This is kind of a vague one. I just want to say that Street Fighter 6 is definitely much more whiff punish centric than Street Fighter 5. You can tell from the kind of range of buttons and the hurtbox design. Another criticism a lot of people have of Street Fighter 5 is the fact that normals generally are quite stubby and don't have lingering hurtboxes. So I feel like in Street Fighter 5 there's quite a lot of characters who have become strong just because they can kind of throw out buttons. There's a lot of swinging in Street Fighter 5. You know, Chun-Li is notorious. Up until this season at least, Chun-Li was notorious for just throwing out stand fierce and basically being unwhiff punishable. But in Street Fighter 6, the moves are very long, they've got a lot of range, but they also have a ton of recovery and huge hurt boxes on recovery. And also, during recovery, you're in punish counter state. So like, whiffing in Street Fighter 6 is so much more dangerous than in 5, which I like. I really like that. It's definitely going to be a whiff punish game. Like, it didn't take me long to really start to get into the swing of things with using Kimberly's stand medium kick to fish for whiff punishes. Character variety. This maybe is one of my criticisms of the beta. I just feel like the character variety wasn't amazing. It's just a product of the characters that they selected, but I used Kimberly, personally, pretty much all weekend. I played a little bit of Guile, but I mostly used Kimberly. But I felt like I didn't really find a character that fit my style. I like the mechanics, I like the feel of the game, but I didn't find a character that I really felt suited me. I would have really liked like Dalsim or maybe Honda to be in the beta. Something a bit different, because it felt like, yeah, there just wasn't that much character variety of the 7 or 8 characters we got to try. But again, that's just a product of how locked down it was. So could be completely different in the final game once we've got all the different archetypes. There was no grappler either. No grapplers, no zoners. It was mostly just Shotos and kind of like footsie characters, I guess. Footsie kind of rushdowny characters. Input delay. This is my single biggest criticism of the Street Fighter 6 beta. You'll notice that up to this point, my opinions on almost everything have been either sort of neutral or positive. Input delay is, if you guys submit one bit of feedback about Street Fighter 6, please submit this. Because right now the input delay is quite high. I haven't got the exact numbers for PC and PS5, but Noodles, who does lots of input delay testing, tested this on Xbox. And Xbox is usually quite good for input delay. And I believe on Xbox it was 6.5 frames of lag. Was it 6 or 6.5? Either way, it was I think it was 6.5. Let me just confirm with chat. PS5 was 6.5, Xbox was 5.5. Yeah, no, 6.5. So basically what I'm getting at here is that I feel like the game has added an extra frame of input delay on purpose as an extra little layer of buffer for the rollback, perhaps. I don't know that for sure, that's speculation on my part. But I could definitely feel when I was playing that the game wasn't quite as crisp and responsive as Street Fighter V, and that was on PC. In theory, PC should be by far the most responsive platform, but even on PC, I could tell that my buttons were coming out just a tiny bit later than they would in Street Fighter V. So yeah, like, I really would like to see, if I see one thing fixed going into the final game, just an extra frame, even just one extra frame subtracted from the input lag, that would go a huge distance. Because there's lots of stuff in the game which is built around reactions. You know, people are complaining about drive impact, and the solution to drive impact is to react to it. But it makes it harder to react to it if you think, oh, I'm just going to press my drive impact. You press the buttons and you feel like that one extra frame is what separated you from landing your own drive impact versus you missing it and losing the game. If you're going to make drive impact a reactions test, you need to have low input lag in your game. So yeah, that's something that I really would like to see improved. That's definitely my big negative so far. It's not as bad as Street Fighter V was on day one. I won't go that far. For those of you who remember the disastrous 2016 launch, Street Fighter V had 8 frames of lag. It was like pressing buttons. You could go to the shop, buy some food, come back, and your button came out. Monos, thanks for the sub. Visual presentation, I think the game looks great in motion. It's Street Fighter 6 is one of those games where you have to constantly tell people, trust me, it looks good on my end, because it has so many so many flashy particle effects and lighting effects and like art brushy effects. So many things are happening on screen at once that a lot of video encodes and particularly compression algorithms just turn it into like a pixelated mess. I'm already looking into maybe like changing some settings on my PC or even upgrading my PC in future, and certainly I'll be changing my rendering settings for YouTube videos because Twitch and YouTube just die trying to make Street Fighter 6 look good. But trust me, I know this sounds like one of those things that you hear people say, but it does look really good in person, but it looks really, really rough quite a lot of the time if you're seeing it secondhand through a compressed video. And last but not least, the final point, music. Don't know if it's high on anyone's priorities list. I think the music in Street Fighter 6 is bad. I don't know if this is more of a me thing. I know this is not really a statement about a feature. I think the music in this game is kind of crappy. Few character themes that are okay, quite a lot that I don't like. The best piece of music in the entire beta is that relaxing little jazz tune that plays in the lobby. That one's actually quite good, but all of the in-fight themes I thought were really bad. Not much I mean, I'm not going to submit feedback about that. That's just a personal preference thing, but I definitely think Street Fighter V's music is way better than Street Fighter 6's, no question. If you go up and listen to like Oro's theme or Gil's theme or what's some other good ones, Zeku's theme, tons of Street Fighter V character themes are superb, and considering it's basically the same people doing the music for Street Fighter 6, I'm shocked at how different it is. So I apologize to the music department at Capcom, but yeah, I just don't vibe with the music in 6. So just to summarize, overall, that was my last point. Street Fighter 6 beta was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. The game is in a great spot. Please fix the input delay, and just for me personally, please improve the music. But yeah, that was my experience. I had a fun weekend.